The movie opens with the shot of Andre working on an ethnic mural, as he asks his mother, Ebony, to come and take a look at his work. She looks at him kindly and approves it, telling him the dinner is about to get ready. We soon hear the sound of church bells tolling and are inside a church, where we meet Berta, Ebony's mom, completely engrossed in the sermons about Jesus bringing Lazarus back to life from the dead, as her minister asks her congregation to believe in the story to be saved. Later in the house, we see Shantae and Nate at the table with Alberta. While hating her cooking, she almost comes to blows with Ebony's parenting skills or lack thereof. Later inside their bedroom, Shantae is chatting with her dad, complaining about her mom acting up again. She notices something is stinking up the room but disregards it, thinking it must be Nate farting up. Noticing a bunch of houseflies entering the house from the basement, Ebony follows and tries to whip them away. Later at night, we see Andre sleepwalking. We see him open the fridge and devour a whole carton of milk inhumanely, spilling most of it on the ground. He then steps outside and watches a crow die peacefully, without so much as a squeak from him. The next morning, as Ebony talks to someone on the phone, the agent on the other side reminds her that she is behind on her credit card payment and needs to come up with the money soon. Meanwhile, we see a bunch of kids harassing Nate and Andre on their way back to the home, as Shantae fights back and asks them to leave them alone. While asking for more time, Ebony finds a bottle of vodka along with some money inside the cupboard. Seeing the children are back from school, she steps outside and asks Nate if he knows anything about vodka in the cupboard. He asks her to take it easy, telling her he was only hiding it from her. Finding blood on Shantae, she finds out the corner boys have been troubling her again and decides to do something about it. Walking there, she finds him and kicks him in the nuts, dropping him on the road. And when one of the boys tells her it is not like that, she warns him to not mess with her children again. Watching Ebony come back, Alberta congratulates her for setting a great example for her children, who in turn does not see her to have done any better with her, telling her she only wants to set things right for her. Ebony tells her she might think she is all fine now, with joining the church, but she knows better and knows everything about her. Outside the house, we see Andre talking to himself, and Ebony finding the source of their fly problem and cursing the house. At night while watching a movie together, Ebony asks Shantae if they can have a small party instead on her birthday this year, that too when his father is back. Realizing she is not getting an iPhone this year too, Shantae walks away. As she walks away, she tells Ebony she is tired of being broke, and Andre joins behind her. Later that night we see Andre sneak into the basement, with flies buzzing. Still out and about, Ebony looks outside and draws the curtains as we see a shadow lurking inside one of the rooms from the outside. Coming down, she notices the door to the basement open and closes it. The next day we see Alberta getting ready for her chemo session at the hospital. Going through her medical checkup, she hits on Melvin, her doctor, managing to get his attention and arouse his interest enough to have him ask her to meet outside for his number. While leaving the hospital, Berta comes to know she has not paid her medical bills for the last 2 months, and when she promises to get it sorted with the Medicaid tomorrow, the attendant tells her the Medicaid does not pay for her bills anymore. Surprised, she asks her who is paying her bill then, and comes to know it's Ebony. Coming home, Ebony realizes Berta knows about her paying her medical bills. Later at night, we see a strange man is now inside the house, waving to Ebony, waking her up. She goes around looking for him, only to find the basement door open, and she throws up in the sink. Realizing that there is someone behind her, she turns around and freaks out, only to realize it's Nate. Realizing Nate wants his money back, she asks him if he has been selling drugs to get so much money. However, he tells her it's his dad who sends him the money, and he has been saving up, so he can get away from her. Getting aggressive with her, he asks her to give him his money back. Ebony would have none of it and slaps him, reminding him not to forget it's his mom that he is talking to, as Andre too walks inside. But Nate pushes her back, hard enough to make her fall down, to her surprise. Nate steps forward to apologize, but she would have none of it. Andre runs to save her to stop her mom, but stumbles on a baseball and falls down. Nate has had enough and walks out, as Ebony hugs Andre and apologizes. Later at night, Ebony begs Nate not to leave, telling him she is really trying hard. Early the next morning, we see an animal rescuer bring out a dead cat from the basement. And when he asks for the payment, Ebony tells him she has no money, asking him to take it from the landlord. However, Nate steps up, leaving to get the cash. While taking the cash out, he sees a car pull up front and sees Cynthia from the Child Support Services show up at the house. Reminding her she was here to see the children were taken care of, after reports of drinking and fighting, especially from the father. Wishing she would fix her life for the sake of her children, Cynthia walks out. We see there is a car parked outside with a woman inside. Alberta figures she must be from the social services. Later, Celebrating Shantae's birthday, Ebony surprises her and hands her an iPhone. Joining her at the party, Melvin asks Berta if Ebony is her real daughter. Telling him she is, Berta tells him it's them who asked her to move into their new house, and how none of them since moving in, have been acting normally. Meanwhile, Ebony hears someone banging on the door to the basement. Opening it, she finds Andre standing there with his eyes shut, freaking her out. She snaps him out of his trance. Later, asking him what he was doing in the basement, Andre tells her he was talking to Trey, as he goes on, telling her Trey lives in the hole downstairs and sometimes comes to his closet too. Not believing what she is hearing, she takes him to his room and tucks him in his bed. Walking away, she stares at his closet. Later, after walking out one of her guests, she comes inside and looks for everyone, asking where did everyone go. Ebony finds Andre again standing outside the door to the basement. She asks him to go to bed. He tells her he is scared, but she would have none of it, and asks him to go to his bed immediately. Later at night, we see Shantae wake up to the sound of the door banging downstairs, making Nate sit up as the door to the basement opens and someone comes out running. Ebony has had enough of the banging and goes to check. Meanwhile, we see Berta leaving Melvin at the door, only to hear Ebony shouting for help. Going to her room, she finds her scared staring at the wall, and with all three children huddled in the corner trembling with fear. And when Berta asks her what happened, Andre tells her mom threw them at the wall. Angry with what she has done, Berta asks her to leave the room. The next morning, we see Berta driving children away to the school, as the woman from the social services trails right behind them. Not soon thereafter, we see Andre, Shantae, and Nate having trouble at the school, with Nate laughing at a sad story, Shantae being unable to control her period flow in the middle of the gym class, and Andre dropping his pants in the middle of the school, relieving himself and thereafter throwing shit at his class teacher. Later, as the children are made to go through a bunch of medical tests, we see Andre in the middle of a Rorschach test. And when the psychologist asks him to identify by showing a picture of a black crow, Andre names it Trey. Reaching the hospital with Berta, when Ebony is told they have not found anything out of the ordinary with the kids, Ebony does not believe her, demanding more tests, believing there is definitely something wrong with the kids, telling her it's not every day when a kid eats his own shit. As she gets aggressive with the doctor, Berta has had enough and stands up to walk out. However, the doctor asks them about the bruises on the kids, stopping the conversation. Outside the hospital, Berta thinks there may be something else going on, bringing up the topic of last night when she was caught beating the kids. Not approving of where Berta is going, she accuses her of being white trash, only interested in sleeping with black men, just like every white woman in the neighborhood. Now back at home, we see Berta putting a giant cross on the wall, as she asks Ebony to believe in God, telling her how he saved her and maybe he will save her too. Going back to the bathroom, Ebony sees Nate drowning Andre in the bathtub and manages to free him just in time. We see Andre staring blankly and towards the direction of the door to the basement, as Alberta looks back at him. The next morning, when Cynthia comes back to check in on the kids after they don't show up at the school, she finds Ebony acting strangely, telling her it's the house that is making the kids sick. However, Cynthia informs her she has been to the hospital and they think it's you. Children are only acting on what they think you want. But Ebony tells her about the strange language she caught Andre speaking the other day in the closet, telling him to kill himself. Cynthia asks her to stop, accusing her of sounding crazy. And then she demands to see the kids. Just then we see Berta descending the stairs, with a baseball bat in her hands. Surprised to see Berta, she calls her crazy, as she prepares to leave the house. Stepping outside, Berta asks Ebony to get her shit together before they take away the kids. Meanwhile, Ebony is confronted by the woman from the social services and comes to know her name is Bernice, and she is an apostle. Telling her about a family that used to live in the same house for 20 years, she informs her they were a wonderful family, much beloved by all. Continuing, she tells her that their son, Aman, was sick too. They took him to all the doctors but could not find a cure for him. That's when they turned to her, begging her to cast out the demon in their son, something her community calls deliverance. She tells her when she walked inside the house smelt of death, its power was so strong she could not fight it, and lost the boy. Continuing further, she tells her the boy was dead along with her father, and later they found out that the mother hung herself after strangling her daughter. And when Ebony asks her for the boy's name, she comes to know that his name was Trey. Telling her his son also has a make-believe friend named Trey, she tells him it's not a friend, it's the devil. As she goes on telling her how the devil has been waiting all these years for another boy to come along and now it wants her son, Ebony has had enough. She begins to leave, asking her to stay away from her family. However, before she leaves, she hands her the card, telling her she will need it. Meanwhile, we finally see Berta being attacked by the demon in the house and strangled to death. Reaching home, she finds the cross burning and Berta dead. Trying to escape, Ebony takes all her children and drives them away from the house. Meanwhile, we see Cynthia in the house taking pictures and looking into the basement. Back in the car, Ebony sees something coming over Andre, as he blames her for her mother's death. In the middle of a fully blown panic attack, she parks her car and goes inside a diner, calling for help, telling them her kids are being attacked by something. However, opening the door, they find the kids are alright. Soon thereafter, we see Ebony in the hospital undergoing her psych evaluation. During the evaluation, we find out she has been drinking and having trouble seeing strange sights and hearing strange sounds. Cynthia, meeting her outside, tells her she is going to be here in the hospital for a while undergoing some more tests, but that she has talked them out of taking her to the psych ward. Seeing her kids outside, she comes to know they are now under the care of child support and are being taken to a church foster care. Later we see Ebony seeking the apostle and finding her in the middle of her congregation. Knowing more about the devil she came to fight, she reminds her he wants her to be scared, but she will teach her how to be strong. Meanwhile, back in the hospital, we see Andre in the middle of a seizure, growling, hissing, and speaking in a strange tongue the whole night. Promising help, the apostle asks her to open up to God. Ready to talk, Ebony tells her about experiencing bad things as a child, with her mother bringing in a stranger in home, who would punish her. Realizing she is holding back, the apostle asks her to join her in prayers, reminding her to feel loved. Back in the hospital, we see Andre has managed to free himself, as Cynthia watches him in horror. Back from the church, Ebony manages to sneak past the security at the hospital and enter into Andre's room, as she drives him away with the help of Apostle. As Bernice recites the formalities, we see the deliverance of Andre is finally underway, with the sprinkling of holy water on Andre. We see the demon has taken the face of Alberta, as she goes on regretting not to have flushed her down the toilet when she was just a clot. As the proceedings continue with the apostle, we see all her accomplices of the devil in the crime against the Jackson family begin to feel the pain. Bernice reminds her there is no escape from what is coming for her, as she begs the Lord to show mercy and rescue the Jackson family. Soon we see the devil begin to tremble and shake, as it breaks the restraints, freeing itself, and crawling on the floor. Not stopping, Bernice commands the devil to leave the body of Andre in the name of Jesus Christ. However, now laughing manically, the devil changes his face and turns to Andre again. Asking Ebony to go upstairs, Bernice realizes there is someone else in the room. But the devil uplifts her by her throat and throws her down, and then lifts her up in the air. We see it's not just Bernice, but all the children who are being tormented by the devil, all at once. Finding him with the body of Bernice, Ebony begs the devil to leave her son. But he leaves. Seeing that she has failed once again, Bernice offers Ebony a jar of holy water, asking her not to be afraid like she did, as she breathes her last. Heading down the stairway to the basement, she finds the hole, and Andre waiting for her. Thinking she knows what she is doing, Ebony throws the holy water on the devil. This only makes him angry, forcing him to drag her by the hair to the hole. And now in the face of Bernice, when the devil asks her if she knows who he is, we see the devil is gone now. As she turns around, she finds someone lifting her up and dropping her on the floor. And we see the devil has now taken Ebony's face. Not believing what he is seeing, the devil sees Ebony moving like her. And when she finally shouts the name of Jesus, it freaks him out, making him put his feet on her throat. We find Ebony in a good place with her children smiling and laughing. And then she hears the voice of Berta, reminding her to listen to God. As the dream ends, Ebony finds herself in the basement, stopping the devil on its feet. The devil tells her no one loves her, not her children, not her husband, and not even her mother. But Ebony fights back, telling her she is loved by her mother, as she invokes God's name and rebukes him. As the devil begins to roast, he begs her to stop. Not listening to him, she continues her incantations. Soon her body is taken over by God, cleansing her children, ridding them of the devil. As the basement is washed by the sunlight, we see the devil burn and be dragged into the hole, where he came from. As the torment ends for all, we see Nate is with Jesus, and Ebony finds her son. As the movie ends, we see Ebony driving her children to Philadelphia to see their father, promising them to make things work with him. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification for more of Bollywood in English. Thanks for watching.